Alright, so picture this. I'm Amanda, 24, and pretty much living, breathing, and bleeding hockey. Not to sound cocky, but I've got skills on the ice, a natural leader vibe, and honestly, the captain's armband felt like it already had my name stitched on it. I'd been working my butt off for this. Every slap shot, every sprint, every late-night practice when everyone else was out partying, it was all for this. I could practically taste the victory. Then she showed up. Mary. She was new to the team, also 24, and let me tell you, from the moment she glided onto the ice, there was something about her. Not in a wow, she's hot way, not yet anyway. It was more like, who the hell is that, kind of way. Her movements were so precise, so controlled. Where I was all raw energy and booming presence, she was quiet, almost ethereal, but you could tell there was an incredible power coiled beneath that calm exterior. She had these serious, intense eyes, framed by long, dark lashes that contrasted sharply with her pale, almost translucent skin. Her dark hair was usually pulled back in a tight ponytail, but even then, a few rebellious strands would escape, framing a face that was both delicate and sharp, like a perfectly carved sculpture. She was lean, with an athlete's natural grace, but there was an unmistakable strength in the way she held herself, the way her skates bit into the ice. My initial thought? Great. Another contender. I'm usually pretty good at sizing people up, but Mary was a locked box. She didn't talk much, just nodded, sometimes offered a curt response, and then she was back to her own world. It really rubbed me the wrong way. Like, who does she think she is, showing up here, acting all mysterious? I like people who are open, who put their cards on the table. She felt like a closed book, and honestly, it felt like she was looking down on my energy, my passion. I just found her so cold. Our first real clash came during a scrimmage. We were both fighting for the puck near the boards. I went in hard, expecting her to yield, but she met me with an unexpected force, her shoulder checking mine with surprising strength. The puck squirted free, and I had to scramble to regain control. My teeth gritted. She just looked at me, those dark eyes unreadable, then skated off without a word. Nice play, newbie, I muttered, more to myself than to her, but I knew she heard me. Her back stiffened for a fraction of a second, but she didn't turn around. That just fueled my annoyance. Later, we were running drills, breakaways. I went first, feeling the thrill of the wind in my hair as I flew down the ice, snapping a perfect shot past the goalie. Then it was her turn. She moved with a silent, almost predatory grace, every movement economical and purposeful. Her shot was a laser, hitting the top corner with a satisfying thud. No flourish, no celebration, just a quiet glide back to the line. Show off, I mumbled, leaning on my stick. My teammate, Chloe, nudged me. She's good though, huh? Chloe whispered. She's adequate. I corrected, though a tiny, grudging part of me knew Chloe was right. Mary was more than adequate. She was exceptional. And that bothered me. A lot. The tension between us was palpable, a low hum beneath the surface of every practice. Every pass, every shot, every turn felt like a silent challenge. When we were on opposite teams, it was like a personal duel. If I got past her, I felt a surge of triumph. If she stole the puck from me, a cold fury would settle in my gut. This wasn't just about winning games anymore. It was about proving myself against her, and for some reason, about getting a rise out of her. The captain position wasn't just a title. It was recognition, it was authority, it was everything I'd worked for. And now, this quiet, intense new girl was suddenly a very real threat. It was clear to me, only one of us was going to wear that C. And I fully intended for it to be me. The captain's tryouts became my entire world. Every single day, it felt like Mary and I were on a collision course. The coaches were watching us like hawks, making mental notes on every single move, every leadership quality, every display of skill. I could feel their eyes, weighing us against each other, and it only intensified the fire in my belly. I'd push myself harder, faster. If I scored 3 goals, I knew she'd be aiming for 4. If I made a perfect assist, she'd somehow orchestrate an even more intricate play. It was an unspoken competition that infused every drill, Every scrimmage, every moment we were on the ice together. My teammates probably thought we were both just super competitive, which, yeah, we were. But for me, it was more than that. It was personal. I needed to prove myself, especially to her, this enigma who barely cracked a smile. One afternoon, during a particularly grueling passing drill, I misread Mary's intention. She sent a saucer pass my way, a little too high and a little too fast. I fumbled it, the puck bouncing off my stick. "Heads up, Amanda," she called out, her voice level, almost neutral, but it felt like a jab. I skated back, my jaw tight. "Maybe you should lead the pass, Mary, not just launch it," I retorted, probably louder than necessary. The air between us thickened, a palpable tension. She just looked at me, her dark eyes narrowing just slightly. "My passes are accurate," she said, her tone still calm, infuriatingly so. "Perhaps your reception needs work." Oh, she went there. My cheeks burned. "My reception is just fine, thanks," I snapped, turning away before I said something I really regretted. It was childish, I knew, but she just had this way of getting under my skin without even trying. Her quiet confidence, her seemingly unshakable composure. It was like she knew she was good and didn't feel the need to shout it from the rooftops like I did. The real flashpoint came during a full-contact scrimmage. The score was tied, and the clock was ticking down. The puck was loose near the goal, a chaotic scramble of sticks and skates. I saw an opening, a narrow lane to shoot. But Mary was there, too, her eyes locked on the same prize. We both lunged. My shoulder hit hers with a sickening thud, a solid impact that knocked the wind out of both of us. We went down hard, skates skidding across the ice, a tangled mess of limbs and protective gear. The puck slid harmlessly into the corner. I heard a sharp gasp, not from me, but from Mary. My head hit the ice, but the impact was softened by my helmet. For a second, everything spun. When I pushed myself up, shaking my head to clear the stars, I saw her. She was still on the ice, clutching her arm, her face pale and drawn. She was trying to get up, but a wince escaped her lips. "Mary, you okay?" One of the other players, Sarah, rushed over. I felt a pang, a weird mix of alarm and something else. Guilt, maybe? I didn't mean to hurt her, not really. I just wanted the puck. But the way she lay there, so still, so vulnerable, it made my stomach clench. She pushed herself up slowly, her expression a careful mask, but I could see the tremor in her hand as she flexed her arm. "I'm fine," she said, her voice a little strained. She refused help, skating off the ice with that same controlled grace, though I noticed a slight favoring of her left arm. Coach blew the whistle, calling the scrimmage. He gave us a stern lecture about playing safe, but his gaze lingered on Mary, then on me. I knew what he was thinking. We were both pushing too hard, letting our rivalry get the better of us. As Mary disappeared into the locker room, I couldn't shake the image of her face, twisted in pain for just a moment. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. We were rivals, sure, but that collision felt different. It wasn't just about the puck anymore. It was a tangible consequence of this simmering tension between us, a stark reminder that beneath the competition, there were actual people, actual bodies, that could get hurt. And for a fleeting second, watching her skate away, I felt a strange pull, a reluctant concern that I definitely hadn't asked for. That evening, a fierce blizzard rolled in, a real monster of a storm. News reports were calling it one of the worst in years. Training was canceled, but a few of us, including Mary and me, were already at the rink when the announcement came. The team bus couldn't make it through the rapidly accumulating snow, so we were basically stranded in the locker room until the roads cleared. Just our luck. To make things worse, the heating system decided that was the perfect moment to malfunction. The air grew steadily colder, a damp chill seeping into our bones despite our thick hoodies. We huddled together on the benches, sharing bad jokes and complaining about the cold, trying to keep our spirits up. Most of the team migrated to one corner, a cluster of chattering bodies. Mary, predictably, sat a little apart, closer to the far wall, a lone silhouette against the fading light from the small window. I kept an eye on her, even though I told myself I didn't care. After our collision, there was this weird undercurrent of, well, not exactly concern, but awareness. Her arm was still a bit stiff, I noticed. She hadn't mentioned it again, but I saw her wince subtly a few times when she moved it. As the hours dragged on, the cold really started to bite. My teeth were chattering, and I could see my breath. I glanced over at Mary again. She had her arms wrapped around herself, trying to create some warmth, but her shoulders were hunched, and her face looked even paler than usual. I knew she was hurting, probably from that shoulder impact. Overtraining on top of that, it was a recipe for disaster. A stubborn part of me wanted to ignore it. She was my rival after all. But another, softer part, one I usually kept buried deep beneath my competitive exterior, nagged at me. It wasn't right to just let her suffer, even if she was Mary. I had a small, chemical hand warmer in my bag, and for some reason, I'd also tossed in one of those reusable gel packs that you can heat up. Call it instinct, or maybe just a residual flicker of guilt from our collision. I wrestled with myself for a few minutes. Just do it, Amanda. Don't be a jerk. With a sigh that no one heard, I rummaged through my bag, pulled out the gel pack, and activated it. It started to warm up, radiating a gentle heat. I walked over to where she sat, trying to look casual. Hey, Mary. My voice sounded awkward even to my own ears. She looked up, those dark eyes meeting mine, still unreadable. Amanda. I held out the warm pack. Here. For your shoulder. You look like you're freezing. I tried to sound nonchalant, but I could feel a blush creeping up my neck. Her gaze flickered from my face to the warm pack, then back to my eyes. A flicker of surprise, maybe even a hint of confusion, crossed her features before she masked it. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly reached out and took it. Her fingers brushed mine, and there was a jolt, a quick, unexpected spark. It wasn't electric or anything dramatic, just a subtle warmth that lingered. Thanks, she said softly, her voice a little rougher than usual. She pressed the pack against her shoulder, a small sigh escaping her lips as the warmth spread. I stood there for a beat too long, unsure what to do next. My usual bravado felt out of place. No problem, I mumbled, then found myself sliding onto the bench beside her, leaving a small, polite distance between us. The other teammates were still deep in their own conversations, oblivious to our quiet exchange. The silence stretched, but this time, it felt different. Not hostile, just there. The only sounds were the howling wind outside and the distant hum of the emergency generator. I found myself looking at her profile, the way her hair curled slightly at her temple. She actually looked vulnerable. My mom used to give me these after every tough practice, I found myself saying, the words just tumbling out before I could stop them. Especially when it was cold. Said it helped with the ache. I even managed a small, self-deprecating smile. Mary turned her head slightly, her gaze still fixed on the wall in front of us. My grandmother, she murmured, her voice barely a whisper. She'd make me hot tea. Always said warmth was the best medicine for the body and the soul. I blinked. She actually spoke to me about something personal. It was a tiny crack in her icy exterior, but it was there. Tea, huh? I said, a little lighter this time. My grandma swore by ginger ale for everything. Stomach ache, headache, broken heart, ginger ale. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched the corner of Mary's lips. It was quick, gone almost as soon as it appeared, but I saw it. Sounds like a cure-all, she said, a hint of something resembling amusement in her tone. We fell into a comfortable silence for a while, the kind that happens when you're just existing next to someone, not needing to fill every void with words. The warm pack seemed to be doing its job, and the shared small talk, however brief, had chipped away at some of the tension. Eventually, the conversation picked up again, spurred by the strange circumstances. We talked about how much we hated blizzards, about the weirdest things we'd ever eaten, about the local pizza place. It was mundane stuff, but with each shared thought, the wall between us seemed to shrink, just a little. I learned that Mary was from a small, tight-knit town up north, and that she'd been playing hockey since she could walk. She learned that I practically lived on caffeine and sarcasm, and that my competitive streak came from my older brothers, who never let me win anything. It was strange, being stuck in that cold locker room with her, the girl I'd practically gone to war with on the ice. But in the dim light, with the snow piling up outside, we weren't rivals vying for a captain's spot. We were just two people, cold and a little stir-crazy, finding an unexpected warmth in each other's quiet company. And as the hours crawled by, a seed of something new, something softer, began to sprout in the unexpected common ground we'd found. The blizzard finally broke, leaving behind a world transformed by pristine, knee-deep snow. The next morning, when the plows had finally cleared a path, Mary and I found ourselves walking out of the rink together, crunching through the fresh powder. The air was crisp, clean, and surprisingly, so was the air between us. "About yesterday," Mary began, her voice low, almost hesitant. She paused, looking down at her boots, then met my gaze. Her dark eyes, usually so guarded, held a flicker of something I hadn't seen before. Vulnerability. The captain position. It's important to me. More than just a title. I waited, my curiosity piqued. Her usual silence made this confession feel significant. "My younger brother," she continued, her voice softer now, a hint of sadness touching her words. "He passed away a few years ago. He always dreamed of being a hockey captain. He looked up to me. Said he'd be the best captain ever, just like me one day." Her gaze drifted to the distant, snow-covered trees. "Winning this, it's a way to keep his memory alive. To honor him." My chest tightened. Oh. All this time, I'd just seen her as a cold, calculating competitor. I hadn't even considered that there might be such a profound, heartbreaking reason behind her intensity. My own reasons for wanting the captaincy suddenly felt shallow. My competitive streak was fueled by ego, by a desire for external validation. Hers was born from grief and love. "Mary," I said, my voice softer than I intended. I had no idea. "I'm so sorry." The apology felt inadequate, but it was all I had. The image of her lying on the ice yesterday, my fault, flashed through my mind. The guilt, which I had tried to push down, resurfaced with a vengeance. She just nodded, a slight tremor in her chin. "It's fine. You didn't know." "No, it's not fine," I insisted, shaking my head. I was being a jerk, assuming things. I let my own insecurities get the better of me. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be as honest with her as she had just been with me. My older brothers, they always pushed me, always made me feel like I had to fight for everything, prove myself constantly. Winning this captaincy, I thought it was my way of finally stepping out of their shadow, showing everyone I was good enough on my own terms. But really, it just made me act like an ass. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I felt like she saw beyond the bravado, to the real me underneath. A ghost of a smile, much more genuine this time, touched her lips. "Insecurities, huh? I wouldn't have pegged you for those, Amanda." "Believe it," I chuckled, a nervous, self-deprecating sound. "Turns out, we both have our reasons for being insufferable." That earned a real smile from her, a small, genuine curve of her mouth that transformed her whole face, making her dark eyes sparkle. It was like seeing the sun break through storm clouds. And suddenly, the tension that had gripped us for weeks, the unspoken animosity, simply melted away like snow in spring. Over the next few weeks, our relationship did a complete 180. We were still competitors, of course, that was just who we were as athletes. But now it was a healthy rivalry, pushing each other to be better, not to be bitter. We started small, with nods and brief conversations in the locker room. Then it grew to teasing during drills, sharing tips on stick handling, and laughing over a particularly ridiculous play a teammate made. One afternoon, during a particularly frustrating practice where nothing seemed to go right, Mary and I ended up staying late, just shooting pucks at the empty net. I was still fuming about missing a breakaway during the scrimmage. "I swear, the net just shrinks when I get close," I grumbled, slamming my stick against the ice. Mary, without a word, skated over, picked up a puck, and slid it towards me. Focus on the corner, she advised, her voice calm and steady. Don't let the pressure get into your head. She stood beside me, demonstrating a slight shift in weight, a subtle turn of the wrist. I tried it, and the puck found its mark. Whoa, I breathed, genuinely surprised. Thanks, Mary. That actually helped. She gave me a small nod, a hint of satisfaction in her eyes. Teamwork, right? That felt significant. Teamwork, not competition. After practice, we started grabbing coffee, sometimes even dinner. We dissect games, talk about our futures, even delve into personal stuff, families, dreams, fears. I learned that beneath her quiet exterior, Mary had a dry wit and a surprising love for cheesy sci-fi movies. She learned that I actually had a soft spot for stray animals and secretly enjoyed baking elaborate desserts. We were two very different people, but somehow, we just clicked. The playful banter came easily now, a comfortable rhythm between us. One Saturday night, the team had a small celebration at a local pub after a hard-fought victory. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and everyone was in high spirits. I'd had a few beers, enough to loosen me up, but not enough to lose control. I was laughing at something Sarah said when I felt a gentle weight on my shoulder. Mary, who was sitting next to me, had leaned her head against my arm, her hair brushing my bicep. She was a little flushed from the warmth of the pub and maybe a glass of wine. Her eyes were half closed, a soft, content expression on her face. Long week, she murmured, her voice a low purr against my ear, sending an unexpected shiver down my spine. My breath hitched. The scent of her, a clean, subtle musk mixed with something faintly sweet, filled my senses. Her head felt surprisingly light, yet her presence was undeniably strong, a warmth seeping into my skin. I found myself instinctively relaxing, my arm unconsciously curving slightly to cradle her head. My heart gave a strange little flutter, a sensation I chose to ignore. The conversation around us faded into a distant hum. All I could focus on was Mary, her quiet breathing, the soft press of her head against me. It was a moment suspended in time, filled with a warmth that had nothing to do with the drinks or the pub's crowded atmosphere. It was a warmth that came from her, from this unexpected, burgeoning connection that was starting to feel like something much more than just friendship. And as I subtly shifted, leaning my own head slightly closer to hers, I wondered, with a nervous flutter, what exactly more might entail. The pub night, with Mary's head resting on my shoulder, had shifted something within me. It wasn't a sudden jolt, more like a slow, insistent tremor beneath the surface. Our friendship had blossomed into something genuinely close, a comfortable rhythm of shared jokes, mutual support, and effortless conversation. We were practically inseparable, both on and off the ice. We'd spend hours after practice just unwinding, talking about everything and nothing. If I was having a bad day, she'd somehow know, offering a quiet, steady presence that grounded me. If she seemed preoccupied, I'd find myself instinctively trying to draw her out, making her laugh with some ridiculous story. I found myself looking forward to seeing her, not just as a teammate, but as Mary. And that's when the more started to creep in. It wasn't a conscious decision, more like an evolving awareness. I started noticing things about her that went beyond just her hockey skills or her quiet demeanor. Like the way her dark hair would fall across her face when she was concentrating, and the almost irresistible urge I had to gently brush it away. Or the subtle changes in her dark eyes when she was truly amused, a warmth that was usually reserved for her brother's memory. Her hands, strong and capable from years of stick handling, but also surprisingly gentle when she'd help me tie a skate lace. I found myself increasingly drawn to her stillness, a stark contrast to my own boisterous energy. It was like she was a quiet harbor, and I, a restless ship, found myself yearning for that calm. My competitive spirit, which had once raged against her, now found a strange solace in her presence. I was still Amanda, still fiery and outspoken, but around Mary, I felt softened, gentler. And that was new. Mary, for her part, had started opening up more. Her dry wit emerged in unexpected moments, catching me off guard and making me laugh until my sides hurt. She'd tease me back, sometimes with a subtle smirk that made my stomach do a flip. She was still reserved, but with me, the walls were crumbling, revealing a surprising depth of emotion and a quiet strength that was breathtaking. One evening, after an intense practice, we were just chilling in the locker room, the last two left. We were both sprawled on the benches, exhausted but content. We were talking about a crazy play from the game last season, and in my enthusiasm, I reached out to emphasize a point. My hand, without really thinking, landed on hers, which was resting on the bench between us. It was just a touch, fleeting and accidental, but it was like a small electric current, a jolt that went right through me. Her skin was warm, smooth. My breath hitched. I quickly pulled my hand away, a blush creeping up my neck. Sorry, I mumbled, suddenly feeling awkward. Mary's gaze met mine, those deep eyes holding a quiet intensity. She didn't pull her hand away. In fact, she slowly, deliberately, turned her palm up, leaving it open, an unspoken invitation. My heart hammered against my ribs. Did she mean what I thought she meant? The silence stretched, filled only by the distant hum of the rink's ventilation system and the frantic pounding of my own pulse. I couldn't bring myself to touch her hand again. Not yet. The unspoken moment hung in the air, thick with a new, tantalizing kind of awareness. A few nights later, we ended up at our usual dive bar, the one with sticky floors and cheap beer. We were celebrating a particularly good week of training, just the two of us. The lights were dim, the music a familiar hum in the background. I was feeling bold, a little reckless, fueled by the comfort of our new closeness and perhaps a couple of IPAs. Mary was across the small table from me, nursing her drink, a thoughtful expression on her face. Her hair was down tonight, a soft, dark cascade framing her face, making her look both alluring and a little unapproachable all at once. I caught myself just staring at her, captivated. "So, Mary," I began, my voice a little husky, leaning forward slightly. My eyes, I knew, were probably sparkling with mischief. "You know, you clean up pretty nice when you're not sweating through a jersey." I let my gaze linger on her, deliberately, overtly. A faint blush bloomed on her cheeks, just a whisper of color, but her dark eyes, instead of recoiling, met mine with a surprising intensity. A slow, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips, a silent challenge. "Is that so, Amanda?" she murmured, her voice a low, throaty sound that sent another shiver through me. "And you, with your enthusiasm on the ice, are almost tolerable off it." The subtle tease in her tone was like a feather-light touch, tantalizing and suggestive. I grinned, feeling the pull, the undeniable magnetism between us. This was it. This was the push and pull, the delicate dance I was now ready to engage in. I let my gaze drop to her lips for a fraction of a second, then back to her eyes, holding her gaze firmly. "Tolerable, huh?" I purred, letting my voice drop to a low, suggestive tone. "I think you mean utterly captivating." Her smile widened, just a fraction, but it was there, a silent acknowledgement of the game we were playing. Her eyes, usually so composed, held a knowing glint, a spark of reciprocal desire. She didn't look away. Instead, she leaned forward ever so slightly, mirroring my posture, her movements slow and deliberate. The air between us thickened, charged with unspoken possibility. It was a silent conversation, a daring flirtation, and in that moment I knew, with a certainty that thrilled and terrified me, that the lines between friendship and something far more intoxicating were not just blurred, they were dissolving entirely. After that night at the bar, the air between Mary and me was practically humming. Our flirtation had moved past playful banter. It was now a tangible force, a silent language spoken through lingering glances, accidental touches that weren't so accidental, and whispers that carried a double meaning. I found myself becoming bolder, more deliberate in my approach. I felt an almost primal urge to break through her remaining reserves, to see just how far she would let me go. I started small. During stretching before practice, I'd make sure my mat was right next to hers. When we were doing a partner drill, my hand would linger a second too long on her arm as I passed the puck. I'd lean in closer when she was explaining a play, letting my breath ghost across her ear, just to see her reaction. Most times, she'd simply meet my gaze, a flicker of something unreadable in her dark eyes, but sometimes I'd catch a subtle tightening of her jaw, a quick intake of breath, a slight flush on her pale skin. Those small tells fueled my ambition. My goal was clear. I wanted to make her feel what I was feeling. This magnetic pull, this undeniable heat. I wanted to disrupt her composure, to see her beautiful calm crack just a little, to reveal the passion I was sure simmered beneath. One particularly warm afternoon, after a strenuous practice, we were the last ones in the showers. The steam hung heavy in the air, blurring the edges of the room. The rhythmic drumming of water against the tiled walls created a strangely intimate atmosphere. I finished rinsing my hair, turning off my shower head, and as I reached for my towel, I saw her. Mary was still under the water, her back to me. The water sluiced down her strong, lean frame, highlighting the elegant curve of her spine, the subtle ripple of muscles in her shoulders. Her dark hair was slicked back, revealing the graceful line of her neck. She was just stunning. And for a moment, I just watched, completely mesmerized. A mischievous idea sparked in my mind, a daring impulse I couldn't resist. I grabbed my towel, drying my hair quickly, then walked over to the edge of her shower stall, just out of the spray. "You know, Mary," I said, my voice low and husky, pitched just above the sound of the water. "You could probably shave a few seconds off your shower time if you just let loose a little." She slowly turned, her dark eyes, heavy-lidded from the steam, meeting mine. Water beaded on her skin, glistening. She didn't look startled, just assessing. The steam, the silence from the other stalls, it all added to the moment's intensity. "And why would I want to do that, Amanda?" she asked, her voice calm, but with an underlying current I couldn't quite decipher. I leaned against the wall, my gaze sweeping over her, lingering for just a breath too long on the curve of her collarbone, the slight swell of her chest beneath the water. "Because," I purred, my voice dropping even lower, "life's too short to hold back, don't you think? Especially when there's so much sensation to explore." I let my eyes meet hers again, a challenge, an invitation. Mary's gaze held mine unwavering. A faint flush, almost imperceptible, spread across her chest. Her breath hitched, just a fraction. For a moment, I thought she might just shut me down, tell me off. But then, a slow, deliberate smile began to form on her lips. A dangerous, knowing curve. "Perhaps," she murmured, her voice a low caress. "Some sensations are best savored." She turned off the water, and the sudden silence in the stall was deafening. My heart hammered against my ribs. She wasn't resisting. She was engaging. This wasn't just my game anymore. Later that week, during a private, extra training session we'd agreed to after everyone else had left, the tension reached a fever pitch. We were running drills one-on-one, pushing each other, the air thick with our exertion, and something else entirely. We both stopped for a water break, leaning against the boards, our chests heaving. I wiped the sweat from my brow, then looked at Mary. Her face was flushed, her dark hair damp and clinging to her temples. Her eyes, usually so guarded, were now bright with exertion and something else, something mirroring the desire I felt. I couldn't hold back. I moved closer, stepping into her personal space. The scent of her sweat, clean and earthy, filled my nostrils. My hand, almost without conscious thought, reached out and gently touched her arm, my fingers tracing the strong line of her bicep. Her skin was warm and damp. "You know," I whispered, my voice barely audible, my gaze locked on hers. "You're incredible on the ice, Mary. Absolutely captivating." I let my fingers slide up her arm, lingering near her shoulder. "But I have a feeling there's so much more to you than just that." I leaned in, my mouth close to her ear, my lips almost brushing her skin. "And I want to find out all of it." Her body stiffened under my touch, a tremor running through her. Her breath caught in her throat, a sharp, ragged sound. I felt the accelerated beat of her pulse beneath my fingertips. She closed her eyes for a fleeting second, a silent surrender, or perhaps a desperate plea for control. When she opened them again, they were dark, swimming with a raw intensity that mirrored my own. Her lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but no words came out. The air around us crackled, charged with unspoken desires, the silent battle between her innate resistance and the overwhelming pull of what was happening between us. In that moment, I knew, with a thrilling certainty, that her carefully constructed walls were on the verge of collapsing. The air in the deserted rink felt impossibly thick, charged with an electricity that made every hair on my arms stand on end. My whispered words, the brush of my lips against Mary's ear, had been the spark. Her sudden intake of breath, the tremor that ran through her, confirmed it. She was right there with me, on the precipice. I pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, those deep, dark pools that were now wide and shimmering with a mixture of surprise, confusion, and a burgeoning desire. Her lips were slightly parted, and her chest rose and fell rapidly. My heart was pounding, a wild drumbeat against my ribs, a response to the raw vulnerability etched on her face. This was it. No turning back now. Slowly, deliberately, I let my fingers slide from her shoulder, down her arm, until my thumb rested on the pulse point at her wrist. It hammered beneath my touch, a frantic rhythm mirroring my own. My other hand rose, gently cupping her jaw, my thumb stroking the soft skin beneath her ear. Her skin was so warm, so soft, a stark contrast to the fierce athlete she was on the ice. Her gaze was locked on mine, searching, questioning, but not pulling away. There was a silent battle raging within her. I could see it. The quiet observer, the composed athlete, the girl who built walls around herself. She was struggling with something entirely new, entirely consuming. And I, selfishly, wanted to be the one to finally set her free. I leaned in closer, my eyes never leaving hers, giving her every opportunity to stop me, to push me away. But she didn't. Her breath mingled with mine, warm and sweet. I could feel the subtle tremor in her body, a mixture of nerves and anticipation. My gaze dropped to her mouth, to the delicate curve of her lips, a silent invitation. And then I closed the distance. My lips met hers, softly at first, a tentative exploration. It was a slow burn, a gentle press that was both a question and a promise. Her lips were soft, yielding, and tasted faintly of mint and something uniquely merry. A quiet moan, barely audible, escaped her throat, and it sent a jolt of pure triumph through me. She wasn't just tolerating it. She was responding. Emboldened, I deepened the kiss. My hand tightened on her jaw, tilting her head slightly, allowing for a more intimate contact. Her other hand, which had been resting by her side, slowly, almost tentatively, rose and clutched at my jersey, her fingers gripping the fabric. It was a silent admission, a desperate holding on, and it ignited a fire within me. The kiss grew more urgent, more demanding. I tasted her, savored the newness of it, the unexpected sweetness. Her initial hesitation melted away, replaced by a growing passion that met mine. Her lips parted slightly under the gentle pressure of mine, inviting me further in. Her response was a revelation, a silent explosion of feeling that rocked me to my core. My fingers threaded into her damp hair, cupping the back of her head, pulling her closer still until there was no space left between us. Her body, lean and strong, pressed against mine, and I felt the intoxicating warmth of her against me. A soft sigh escaped her, a sound of pure surrender, as her fingers dug deeper into my jersey, as if trying to pull me even closer into her. The kiss deepened, becoming more heated, more consuming. Her body trembled, a delicious vibration against mine, and I felt my own control starting to fray. This wasn't just physical attraction. It was something profound, something that had been simmering between us for weeks, finally boiling over. It was a connection that went beyond the ice, beyond rivalry, beyond friendship. It was a raw, undeniable desire that threatened to consume us both. I could feel her responding with an intensity that surprised and thrilled me, a quiet fire that had been hidden beneath layers of composure now unleashed. In that moment, on the cold, hard boards of the rink, surrounded by the ghosts of our competition, we were lost in each other, teetering on the exhilarating edge of something utterly new and terrifyingly wonderful. My mind, usually so clear, was a dizzying rush of sensation, and all I knew was that I never wanted this feeling to end. The kiss, hot and desperate, had stolen my breath, stolen my sense of self. It was a raw, visceral connection that left me reeling. It was as if every unspoken thought, every hidden longing, had finally found its voice in that singular, intoxicating moment. When we finally broke apart, gasping for air, our eyes locked. Hers were still wide, pupils dilated, a kaleidoscope of emotions swirling within their dark depths: shock, wonder, a hint of fear, and beneath it all, an undeniable, fiery passion. My own heart was still thundering, a wild rhythm echoing the chaos and exhilaration within me. We stood there, chests heaving, the scent of her on my lips, the ghost of her touch still tingling on my skin. The silence of the empty rink was broken only by our ragged breaths. A slow blush crept up Mary's neck, darkening her cheeks. She avoided my gaze for a fleeting second, her eyes dropping to my lips, then back up to mine. There was a vulnerability in her expression I'd never seen before, a complete dismantling of her usual composure. The Ice Queen had melted, and in her place was a woman utterly, breathtakingly exposed. "Mary," I breathed, my voice a husky whisper, still laced with the lingering intensity of the kiss. I reached out, my fingers gently tracing the curve of her jaw, feeling the warmth of her skin, the frantic pulse beneath.
She didn't speak.
She just leaned into my touch, her eyes closing for a moment, a silent admission of surrender. When she opened them, the fear was still there, a tiny flicker, but it was overshadowed by a profound, searching tenderness. That night, in the hushed intimacy of the locker room, surrounded by the echoes of our past rivalry, our relationship transformed. We didn't talk much, not in coherent sentences anyway. It was more about touch, about lingering gazes, about the careful, almost reverent way we navigated this new, uncharted territory. She was still quiet, still reserved, but with me, she was raw, open, exquisitely vulnerable. Her body, once so controlled and precise on the ice, now moved with an almost languid grace under my hands, responding to every touch, every caress. Her surrender was a symphony of soft sighs and gentle shivers, a complete, beautiful immersion. I felt like I was discovering a whole new universe within her, a galaxy of sensation and emotion that I had only just begun to explore. The passion was intense, a raging fire that defied all the logical boundaries I had once held, a consuming desire that left no room for doubt or hesitation. It was a beautiful, reckless descent, a free fall into a connection that felt destined, utterly and completely right. The next morning, the world felt different. Brighter, sharper, more vibrant.
But also a little terrifying.
Mary was gone when I woke up, a quiet message on my phone the only indication she'd been there. "We need to talk." My stomach nodded with a mix of anticipation and dread. We met at our usual coffee shop, a neutral territory. She sat across from me, her dark eyes still holding a hint of the previous night's intensity, but also a renewed composure. Her hands, clasped on the table, trembled slightly. "Amanda," she started, her voice a little shaky. I've never felt anything like that before. Not with anyone." Her gaze was unwavering, sincere. "It's overwhelming." My heart squeezed. I knew. I felt it too. "Me neither, Mary," I admitted, my voice equally soft, equally vulnerable. "And I know it's a lot. We were rivals, then friends, and now—" I trailed off, gesturing vaguely between us. She took a deep breath. "I was scared," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "Scared of what it means." scared of losing this. She motioned between us, encompassing our shared history, our burgeoning present. I never saw myself like this. With a woman. With you. The raw honesty in her voice pierced through my remaining nervousness. This wasn't just physical. This was her heart, exposed. I get it, I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. This time, there was no jolt, just a comforting warmth, a profound sense of rightness. It's okay to be scared. I am too, a little. But what happened last night? Mary, that was real. More real than anything I've ever felt. Her fingers tightened around mine. It was, she agreed, her voice a little stronger now. She met my gaze, a soft, tentative smile gracing her lips. And I don't want to lose it. Or you. A wave of relief washed over me, so potent it almost brought tears to my eyes. This was her commitment, her quiet, unwavering promise. It was everything I hadn't realized I was aching for. Good, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. Because I don't want to lose you either. Our journey wasn't going to be easy. There would be questions, self-doubt, societal pressures, and the lingering shadows of our past selves. Mary, the quiet observer, had been drawn into a world of intense emotion she never anticipated. I, the boisterous competitor, had found a depth of connection and vulnerability I never knew I craved. But in that quiet coffee shop, with our hands clasped across the table, a new chapter began. The unexpected connection forged on the ice, tempered by rivalry and ignited by passion, had led us to this moment. We were two different women from different worlds, but our love, born from conflict and blossomed through understanding, had brought us together, healed old wounds, and promised a future we were both, finally, brave enough to embrace. It wasn't just about hockey anymore. It was about us, about the unexpected, beautiful tapestry of Amanda and Mary.